Lions have to replace their D-line coach as Todd Wash leaves. Where could they go? And a crazy mock draft coming up on a Friday. Locked On Lions.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How's everybody doing on this Friday? It's Matt Dery. It's Locked On Lions on the Locked On Podcast Network of Friday, February 17th and a Saturday, February 18th. Thanks for checking us out, making us your first listen each and every day right here on Locked On Lions, where we give you content Monday through Friday, regular season, preseason, off season, doesn't matter. We are here for you each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for checking us out. Wherever you get your podcast, Locked On Lions Today is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, D-E-R-Y Speaks, at Locked On Lions, as well on Twitter, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, where we post the podcast each and every day if you're a Facebook person. And if you're watching on the video side, thanks for checking us out on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. Coming up today, Todd Wash is gone. Just when I spent yesterday talking about how the Lions have this continuity with their coaching staff and most of the staff is coming back and isn't this great, and Ben Johnson and yada, 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 Todd Wash is bolting for Carolina. I'm going to tell you why coming up momentarily. Also, could there be a former Lion coming home to play right guard for the team next season? Jeff Risdon from the Lions Wire pointed something out today. Thought it was a good point. I'm going to bring that up coming up on the show. Also, a mock draft from the draftnetwork.com, their latest mock. A little wild, but it has the Lions taking a player at number 6 that's really, really good. But do you take him at 6? All of that coming up on the program here today. Again, we appreciate you watching, listening, and checking us out. Tell your friends about us here on Locked On Lions. We are over 4,000 subscribers now on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. So we really appreciate that. Appreciate everybody's commentary and the comments on YouTube, etc. All right. So yesterday we were a little bit surprised. Right after, let me fix my camera here. Right after we recorded the podcast yesterday, reports started to surface that Todd Wash, the veteran, 16-year veteran defensive line coach in the NFL, 54 years of age, is leaving Detroit. He is leaving the Lions after 2 seasons to become the D-line coach of the Carolina Panthers. And you might say to yourself, why are the Lions losing assistant coaches making lateral moves to Carolina? Like, is Carolina Panthers owner David Tepper overpaying? What's going on in Carolina? Deuce Staley leaves to go from running backs coach in Detroit to running backs coach in Carolina. And now you've got Todd Wash leaving Carolina, the Lions as D-line coach to become the D-line coach in Carolina. It's not like he's going to become the defensive coordinator or anything like that. So I did a little bit of digging on this, and it seems like Todd Wash has so many connections to the Carolina Panthers that it's crazy. Let me read them off to you. You ready? Todd Wash, first of all, we know this, knows Deuce Staley. Staley is going to coach the running backs under Frank Reich, and Frank Reich is putting together a pretty good staff down there. So Deuce Staley probably told Frank Reich, hey, listen, we need a D-line coach. Go get Coach Wash from Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson coached up Aleem McNeil this year. James Houston. Lions D-line got better this year under Todd Wash. Also, Ejiro Evero, the former Broncos defensive coordinator, came into the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 15, 16 years ago and was a quality control assistant with Todd Wash. So Todd Wash is going to be working with Ejiro Evero, who's now the new defensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. So there's that connection. Also, Todd Wash worked with Seattle general manager, or I should say former Seattle assistant general manager Scott Fitterer when Wash was the D-line coach in Seattle. He also worked with Dan Morgan, who is a coach and a front office guy in Seattle. Fitterer now is the GM of the Panthers, and Morgan is his assistant. So are you keeping score here? Deuce Staley, Ejiro Evero, Scott Fitterer, Dan Morgan. I got more. Todd Wash worked twice, 2019 and 2021, with Dom Capers. 2019 in Jacksonville when Capers was a defensive consultant. And of course, Dom Capers worked here in 2021 under Dan Campbell. Now going to be a defensive assistant and consultant. He's an older coach. We know Dom Capers for many years. He's former head coach in the league. He's going back to Carolina. He's on Frank Reich's staff, and he worked with Todd Wash. You catch your breath there? So what are the Lions going to do? That's a big loss. Coach Wash is good. He's 54. He's got really good communication skills. And that's a loss. Now, the Lions do have Cameron Davis as their assistant D-line coach, highly regarded in that building, younger guy, and maybe he gets elevated to the D-line coaching position. Keep an eye on that. But Todd Wash leaving kind of sucks. But again, when you win and you have success, you're going to lose coaches. That's just how it is. We expected Ben Johnson to be gone. We expected Aaron Glenn to maybe get a head coaching job. Those two will stay, but Deuce Staley is leaving, and now Todd Wash, defensive line coach, is leaving. So keep an eye on Cameron Davis. That I think could be an option for the team, unless they want to go with somebody of the more veteran variety. So we'll have to wait and see. All right, coming up next, right here on Locked On Lions, there is a possible cap casualty player that the Lions could be picking up in the near future. And he could be your right guard next year. And it's a familiar name. We will do that coming up next. But first, I got to tell you about FanDuel. Hey, NBA All-Star Weekend is here. Oh, man, can't wait for that dunk contest. Mac McClung, Jericho Sims. You might not know him, but I do. And a midway point of the NBA season is here. Now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything you want, from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Peter Brady moment there with the voice cracking. But FanDuel is the best. It really is. You want to bet on anything, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. They even let you continue to combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so full credit to Jeff Risdon. If you listen to Locked On Lions, you know that I read Lions Wire, Pride of Detroit. I read everything. And you got to give credit where credit is due. Jeff does a great job. And he brought up 5 players the other day that he thinks could be cap casualties that the Lions could scoop up as unrestricted free agents. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of players. You can read it at thelionswire.com. But there is an interesting name on the list. Could the Lions bring back none other than former Lion Graham Glasgow to play right guard this year? Graham, of course, was drafted by Bob Quinn, 2016? Might have been. Graham Glasgow, 4 years with the Lions, then left Detroit after 2019 to sign a 4-year, $44 million free agent deal with the Denver Broncos. He's in the last year of that deal this year. Sean Payton is taking over in Denver. You got to figure he's going to want to put his own furniture in his own house, and maybe, just maybe, you're paying Graham, I think, $9 million this year, and the Broncos could save themselves a lot of money by releasing the now 30-year-old veteran offensive guard. So, if Graham Glasgow is a cap casualty by the Broncos, could the Lions bring him back? Well, first of all, he was very popular in the locker room. Media loved him. Great quote. And Why not? You could sign him for a lot less money. I think he would probably take less, you would figure. He's made a lot of money in his career. And the reason why I think he would take less is Graham Glasgow did not have a good year last year, statistically. Pro Football Focus graded out Graham Glasgow at a 59.3 this past season. Not great when you're talking about offensive linemen. It's not horrible, but it's also not great from an starting offensive line perspective. Just to give you a little bit of perspective on that, Evan Brown, the man we're all waiting to run out of town, that we think we can upgrade at right guard because Evan Brown played most of last year at right guard. Evan Brown graded out at a 64.8. He finished 5 points higher than Graham Glasgow, 5.5 points higher than Graham Glasgow. So Glasgow's not coming off a great year. He's getting a little bit up there in age at 30, but is that an option for Detroit? Yes, I think so. You want somebody sturdy. You want somebody dependable. He knows the area. He knows a lot of the guys on the team. Yes, the roster has done a lot of a makeover, but he played with Taylor Decker, among others. And so that would be an interesting move for the Lions to maybe get a one-year deal. He's not making $9 million. He's not making $11 million to bring Graham Glasgow back and see if he can help you at right guard. I think somebody else, an outside team, a team that with a need of a center, is going to scoop up Evan Brown. Evan Brown is a starter in this league. I think he's a better center than guard. I think we saw that this year when he had to play when Vaitai got hurt. But I think Evan Brown's going to be a starting center somewhere. It's not here in Detroit because Frank Ragnow is here and there's no room for Evan Brown. But Graham Glasgow was very popular in that room and a really solid player. Of course, went to Michigan, played 4 years for the Wolverines. So keep an eye on that. I thought that was a nice move and a nice find by Jeff Risdon to say, look, Lions need a right guard. If they cut Vaitai, they'll be saving themselves like $6.5 million. If they let Evan Brown walk, they're going to need a starting right guard this season. Logan Stenberg is not a starting right guard. They could draft a right guard. They could go get Osiris Torrance or something at number 18 or plug and play a second or third rounder. But that offensive line is really, really good. And a veteran piece like Glasgow on a one-year deal, sign me up. I would have no issue with that at all. All right. I saw a mock draft today at thedraftnetwork.com that I have to bring up because I know it goes against what a lot of you want the Lions to do at number 6. I'm not even bringing up who they have the Lions mocking at 18. I just want to talk about number 6 and thedraftnetwork.com's latest mock draft. We will do that coming up next. First, though, what about our friends at Ultimate Football GM? Yes, today's episode brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about it. This mobile game app, it's a lot of fun, and we had a lot of fun this year doing a Locked On League at Ultimate Football GM. The great Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers was the winner. Now it's your turn to compete, and you can do it right now. Because if you've dreamed of being an NFL GM, now's the time to sign up and play this free game. Download it, the app, or ultimate-gm.com, because it is so much fun. You hire coaches, you hire coordinators, you're the general manager of your franchise. You trade players, you navigate your franchise through free agency, the draft. It is very, very cool. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go and as you want and when you want to. Locked On Lions listeners are going to get a 100% free boost to their franchise when they use the promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps, so make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. I feel like every time I say today, like in a live read, like start your dynasty today, that I should do a Tanya Lalonde impersonation. Today! Do it that way. Those of you that don't know who Tanya Lalonde is, just listen to the radio. Terrestrial radio. All right. thedraftnetwork.com's latest mock draft. And they do updated mocks all of the time from their different hosts. We love Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's at the Draft Network, among others. This was not Joe's mock draft. Some guy named Bradley something. Doesn't matter. Go to the website, click on it. So their latest mock draft had no trades in it. So Will Anderson going number 1 to the Bears, which would be a no-brainer in my opinion. Number 2 would be Bryce Young to Houston, right? Number 3 would be Jalen Carter to Arizona. Cardinals just hired Jonathan Gannon, a defensive coach. He's probably the best player on the board. They're rebuilding. You bring him in. The Colts at number 4, this was interesting, took, instead of C.J. Stroud, because they're going to take a quarterback, they took Will Levis from Kentucky. Tell me who's in the house tonight. UK. Tyree Wilson, the edge rusher, would go number 5 to Seattle. So you don't have Wilson. Miles Murphy is there. Among others, are there, other players are there too. Heck, C.J. Stroud is there if you want to geek out and take a quarterback and do something the Lions aren't doing. But this mock draft had the Lions taking Devon Witherspoon, the cornerback from Illinois, at 6. There are those that believe you cannot take a cornerback at number 6. No way. Too high, ridiculous, not a chance. I know this. Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, and we'll have Trevor on soon, just loves this kid. Loves him. And so saw this mock draft. I type in YouTube, and I put on some highlights. Look, we've all watched Devon Witherspoon play. I watched every minute of the Indiana-Illinois game because my son is an IU student. So I watch Indiana football. I watch Michigan every week. We watched him play against J.J. McCarthy, and Devon Witherspoon had a big game that day and a game that Michigan was lucky to win. He's a really good player. Really good player. But again, he's everything the Lions would want at a cornerback spot. But do you take him at 6? Right? Remember, show of hands here. How many of you are still freaked out about the Honolulu Blue and Silver years ago? And it wasn't Brad Holmes. It was the maestro, Bob Quinn, taking Jeff Okudah at 3. And now we've seen that Jeff Okudah has not been worthy of the number 3 overall pick. Could he end up being a really good player? Yes. He's been hurt. He's had his ups and downs this past year. First half of the year, we were lathering in the Okudah butter. Second half of the year, he was benched, did not play well, and now there's a question on whether or not Brad Holmes is going to pick up his 5th-year option. He'll be back this year, you would think. But Devon Witherspoon is the total package at cornerback. He's not just a cover guy. He hits you. He's a great tackler. He's everything. And he does fill a big-time need for the Lions. But the question is, do you take Miles Murphy instead, or Brian Bresee, or anybody else along that defensive line, or even offensive line? Do you take a corner at 6? Witherspoon, I turn on the tape again, and I'm just like, he's so good. He is. So I'm mixed because I'm thinking to myself, a corner at 6, you can get a corner at 18, you can get a corner in the 2nd round. There's so many of them. You know, all those guys from Maryland, Ringo from Georgia, Gonzalez from Oregon. There's a lot of guys you could take. Good, solid cornerbacks. Do you take Witherspoon at 6? Depends on what Brad Holmes in this draft board he has looked like. Now, still early. The Lions could trade for Jalen Ramsey. They could sign Jamel Dean. And I don't think they would take a corner at 6 if they were making moves with veteran cornerbacks. But you just never know. You never know. But I found this to be very, very interesting. And we've seen this before. Witherspoon has been mocked to the Lions before. I love him as a player. But I just don't know if I would take him at 6. But maybe I'm making a stupid argument. If you think he's the best player out there, Matt, why not just take him at 6? I guess. But again, there's so many corners, and do you take one that high? Or do you keep continuing to build on that D line and you take a Miles Murphy, who's a very good edge rusher, or somebody of that ilk before you take a corner back? All right, have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On Lions on a Friday edition here on Friday, February 17th. We will talk to you again next week.